Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about Malaysia implementation of e-invoice. For information, before the Malaysia implement e-invoice, the businesses is issuing e-invoice as usual. Generally, they will issue invoice in PDF file and send over to the customer in order to get money from the customer. But this implementation of e-invoice by the Malaysian government, the purpose is to detect those businesses that do not apply this practice of issuing invoice for the sales they have concluded. Which means before implement e-invoice, the businesses is already issued e-invoice in the sense of in PDF. I would rather term as invoice. Before implementation of e-invoice, the businesses in Malaysia is issue invoice. This is normal PDF file. But Malaysian government is going to implement e-invoice in the form of standardized, synchronized across all the platform, which is no longer applicable in PDF format. The format of this e-invoice is in the format of program file. It is commonly called as JSON file and XML. I think for the businesses, it's difficult to understand why. You have question. Of course, previously I issued e-invoice as not e-invoice. Previously, I issue invoice. The businesses will complain. They said, previously I also issue invoice. But now, what is the difference between invoice, which I issued previously, and e-invoice that implemented by the government? This is the thing. The government wanted all the businesses to have one standard format in a JSON and XML file so that they can easily collect the data and display in the AHDN system. Businesses previously, they get a lot of type of invoices. They can issue in PDF, they can print, they can handwriting, and they can issue using Excel format. But this no longer applicable once AHDN in Malaysia implement e-invoice. This is just the basic understanding of e-invoice. Then come to the question that businesses will say, if I issue invoice, what is the benefit to the businesses? Now, according to the AHDN, this point is digitalize all the transaction. Digitalize? Yes, in terms of digitalize, I believe most of the Malaysian businesses already implement. Because, for example, if they subscribe to the accounting system, they're already in the format of digitalization format. What's the point? I believe in future, this is benefit to both parties in terms of taxation things. For your information, I believe for those businesses who are doing business and using the entity called Sendam Berhad, which is very common in Malaysia, they need to estimate tax payable in advance. So, when every time when they want to estimate in near future, when the e-invoice is implemented fully, I believe every businesses can have a click on the system and have a better understanding of what they're going to estimate. And even they do not need to estimate by themselves, because after implementation of e-invoice, Malaysian government have the good understanding of how is the business doing. Like for example, according to some industry feedback, some company in certain industry, they already revised the tax payable, which is allowed under the Act, because you are allowed to estimate and revise. In terms of tax payable in future, you can revise, reduce to the lowest amount that you feel that is acceptable. But then, for this case, this company in certain industry, when they submit the revision of tax payable, it's rejected by the HDN, and HDN issue the directive notice of installment payment to the company, whereby this is the magic, the power of the big data, because HDN have the metrics on how much the company should estimate, which is very important in the context of the taxation. And because why the implementation of e-invoice is because one of the things that they want to, as I said just now, they want to detect those taxpayers that do not paying tax previously. This is very smart way of detecting all those businesses that in a gray area, then in the underlying of the economy, like gray area, even illegal activities that carried out by the businesses. Like yesterday, I got a call from my associate. He's saying that his client is already submitted an estimated figure of tax to the HDN, with these businesses that their client carry out is not legal. So in order for you to resubmit the tax payable again, you are trigger the attention of HDN. Now still under the implementation, the period we call the transition period for implementation of e-invoice, because for e-invoice we have different stages. So for those turnover that is got a bigger turnover, those taxpayers will implement first, and second phase for those turnover that lesser, and subsequent for the phase 3 is lesser. So the e-invoice is still under the implementation period, which still have buffer of time for the businesses to be ready. One thing to have to note that the 500,000 threshold is applicable for those businesses that is now is previously is the exemption for businesses who do not need to submit e-invoice is for those turnover below 150,000. But now the government already extended the exemption scope to 500,000 turnover. So for those businesses that fall under this range is no longer have to issue e-invoice. But bear in mind, according to one of the officers in one of the sitting forum with the officers, okay, I think the 10 minutes is now. Thanks.